This is Wretched Radio with Todd Friel.
Yeah, I believe in miracles. Where you from, you Lutheran thing? This is Wretched Radio. Do you believe in miracles? Of course, there's lots of them written about in the Bible. I believe in those. But if somebody comes along today and says, I can do miracles, we can say, oh, there's a problem here. Why? Because miracles were designed to authenticate the message of the messenger. That means if somebody can do a sign and a wonder, you better believe what they're teaching. Now, here's what we see today. Inevitably, the people who are claiming to do signs and wonders, look at their teaching. It's inevitably bad. But if these people can actually do miracles, then we better believe every word that comes flying out of their mouth. But then what comes trickling out is pablum and it's false teaching. So what do we do with these people who claim that they're doing miraculous things? First of all, we're very, very skeptical. Second of all, we look for some sort of affirmation, and we have not been able to see one verifiable organic healing that is certifiable. Not one. Would love to see it. To all of these people who are claiming they believe in miracles, then let's line up some dead bodies, bring in your best miracle workers, and let's see somebody brought back to life. We'll have doctors there. We'll make sure that they're stone cold dead. You bring them back to life. Let's see if you can do a miracle. Haven't seen one sign and wonder, because the problem is when those things are done, people are inclined to believe them. So what do? We look at the miracles in the Bible and say it supports the message of the messenger. The culmination, the high point miracle, Jesus rising from the dead. We believe him because what he did was miraculous. And therefore, we believe his words had to be from God. Now, we've got every single word that we need according to the Bible, 2 Timothy 3:16 and 17. We don't need anything else for life and godliness. And so God stopped the miracle program, which was sporadic at best, because we've got everything that we need in the Bible. Now, if you were with us but moments ago, which is highly unlikely because nobody ever is, R.C. Sproul was teaching on this subject years ago when he would do his chalk talks, when he would do his lectures. You hear him on the radio program. He's always writing on the board. I'm guessing the clips that you just heard were 20 years old. R.C. Sproul recently at a Q&A was asked about miracles. Let's just see if R.C. Sproul is consistent. Will he say the same thing he said 2 decades ago?
Practical problem we have in this day and age is that what these men have just said is that in redemptive history, in the biblical truth, God authenticated or attested agents of revelation through the miraculous. You go back to Moses when God calls him in the Midianite wilderness and tells him to go to Pharaoh and say, let my people go. You imagine Moses walking up and knocking on the door, say, I'd like to talk to the Pharaoh, and I want him to release this great labor force that he has. Well, who told you I should do that? Well, I was talking to this bush out in the wilderness. You know, lots of chance Moses had. And so Moses said, how in the world are they going to believe me, or how are the people going to throw down their picks and shovels and go on the biggest wildcat strike in the world history? He says, well, stick your hand or throw your stick on the ground, and he does. It turns into a snake. Pick it up and it turns back into a stick. Put your hand in your shirt, turns into leprosy. And he says, this is how you're going to demonstrate. And that's what the miracles under Moses and the plagues and so on demonstrated, that he was an agent of revelation, a spokesperson for God. And then the whole line of prophets began with Elijah, who was certified in the same way.
And then you've got Elisha. And then think of some more miracle workers in the Old Testament. Go ahead. Go ahead. Solomon? Nope. David? Nope. Isaiah? Nope. I don't think Isaiah did any miracles, did he? Jeremiah? Not aware of any. Don't recall. You're hard-pressed, aren't you? They did not happen often. They would typically would initiate an era. Jesus came. That's when we started to see Lots of miracles, just like R.C. Sproul said 20 years ago. And the other day.
Sometimes think that in biblical history there was a miracle behind every bush, and that's not so. There are special times of redemptive history. You get to the New Testament, the ministry of Jesus, and you have a wake of miracles such as the world has never seen. Nicodemus had it right. His theology was sound when he came to Jesus at night and said, "Teacher, we know that you are teacher sent from God, or you would not be able to do these things." And then we see Hebrews and other books pointing to the miracles as authenticating the apostles as agents of revelation. Now, here's the
I could be wrong, but didn't he just say that 20 years ago? Question for you: why does he sound like he's, I don't know, saying pretty much the same thing? Is it because of his staggeringly good memory? Perhaps, but maybe it's because he studies the Bible. And when you study the Bible and you learn what God teaches about things, when you teach it this year, next year, 20 years ago, if you had a space machine, time machine, and you could go back, you're always going to be teaching the exact same thing. For instance, the problem with the idea of miracle workers today.
Here's the problem. If the miracle signs are done by some preacher today, then one of two things would happen. Either A, that would mean that he's an apostle, and that all of his writings should appear in the next edition of the New Testament, because he's just been authenticated in the same way that the apostles were. Or B, the Bible used unsound logic and reason by saying that the apostles were certified by these signs and wonders. You understand the logic there? If somebody who's not an agent of revelation can do the same thing, then those signs and wonders can't possibly have the evidentiary value or attesting value of authenticating an agent of revelation. That's why these things disappeared with the death of the last apostle, because the apostolic authority, the Bible, was authenticated, and therein we have that Word of God that we know comes from God because God certified it through these signs and wonders.
I'm having deja vu all over again one more time. As consistent as the Bible, R.C. Sproul. Now, what about those things that are like, whoa, dude, what, whoa? Phil Johnson likes to say that providence is extraordinary. There are some things that happen, and it's like, well, that's pretty wild that happened. What are the odds, perhaps we say? We would do well to understand the difference between providence and genuine signs and wonders, miracles.
Do we sometimes confuse miracles with providence?
Well, we make a distinction in Reformed theology between miracle in the narrow sense and what we call special providences. I hate it when people ask me, do I believe in modern day miracles? Because I know I'm working with a term that has a technical theological meaning that is different from what the average layperson means when they ask me that question. When we define miracle in the narrow sense, we're talking about that immediate act of God, that supernatural act of God, through his immediate power, by which he, in the visibly apparent world, does something that only God could do, like restore an arm that was gone, or cause an axe head to float, or turn water into wine, that sort of thing. Now, miracles in that sense, I don't believe happen. But because every miracle is a supernatural event, but not every supernatural event would qualify for that real narrow definition. But if you ask me, is God still working supernaturally? Is God still answering prayers from on high? Of course we believe that. It's just that I don't expect to lay my hands on somebody who has lost both legs and say, get new legs, and they're going to get it, because it's not going to happen. because I'm not an apostle.
And you kind of need to be to perform a miracle. Why? Because miracles were designed to authenticate the message of the messenger. So what about you bump into somebody you were just talking about at lunch? That's providence. Pretty extraordinary, but it's not a miracle. So when those little events happen, God is orchestrating, designing everything, and it may cause you to go, whoa! But we must understand and rightly use the term miracle so that we do not give the impression to people that they're still happening as rightly defined in a narrow sense by R.C. Sproul, so that somebody can't come along and do some shenanigans and we believe the message of the messenger. So what does that mean? If you know somebody who's teaching and they're saying, I'm doing all kinds of miracles over in Bangladesh, there's a sign at the back of the hall, red letters, run for it. This is Wretched Radio.
Thanks for listening to the Wretched segment du jour. If you'd like more Wretched, you can listen to the most current stream for free at wretched.tv/listen, or you can become a club member and listen to our entire archive. Wretched, reaching the lost, equipping the saints, and strengthening the local church.